The plot continues to thicken when it comes to Lauri Markkanen and the possibility of the Utah Jazz actually trading him. Now, many people feel as though Lauri Markkanen should be traded. Others feel like if they can retain him and still manage to tank properly, then they might as well do that as well. Both sides, no matter which way you look at it, you still should entertain the likelihood of a potential trade if it should come across the table with a hard to resist offer at the very least. Remember, Lauri Markkanen cannot be renegotiated for his contract to be a max until his anniversary on August 6th. Up until that point, it's pretty fair game to just go ahead and shop the name around. Not so much to say that they're trying to fire sale him and get rid of him, but more so to see if somebody's willing to do what the Brooklyn Nets experienced with the New York Knicks when it came to the name of Mikal Bridges, because originally he was supposed to be part of their building future. But the New York Knicks slid an offer they could not refuse across the table, and so they signed their names on the dotted line and shipped them across the bridge. Interestingly enough, though, there was one particular team that stood out above the rest, and we're going to be talking about them and what it could potentially mean if he were to end up on that roster as time goes on. Thanks for tuning in this video. It's your boy Wraith Hoops. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I cover NBA basketball. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this one. Lauri Markkanen was almost nearly, allegedly of course, traded to the Sacramento Kings of all teams. Now, the Kings are a very competent organization. In the playoffs before this, they actually went against the Golden State Warriors and had one of the most amazing chess matches between coaching staffs and players that we've seen in quite some time. And while it was very short-lived and the Warriors eventually prevailed, it was still lovely to see. This year, the Kings did not necessarily see that same peak, and of course, that led to De'Aaron Fox ultimately saying that he wasn't willing to really sign an extension and push forward until he sees what direction the team is actually going to go and what the coaching staff and the front office decide to put together as far as personnel pieces around him. Lauri Markkanen would definitely be an upgrade for what they have on the roster, and he would provide Domantas Sabonis with a much needed partner in crime that can assist him with rebounding, because that is something that they have, ironically enough, dramatically suffered in, because Sabonis is the only one that actually can rebound out of all their bigs apparently. On the Ball Don't Lie podcast, Jake Fisher was revealing information detailing what exactly was going on with the entire situation, and he said that he felt as though there's really just a 10% chance that the Jazz actually end up trading Lauri Markkanen, but 10% is still a chance at the end of the day. And the fact that it was the Sacramento Kings is something that came across to me as being very surprising to start things out, but it slowly made sense as time went on. Apparently, there was almost a trade that was agreed upon, meaning that there had to have been a significant amount of either draft capital mixed with young players, or more so young players and a couple draft picks thrown in there to really make Danny Ainge and that front office think, because otherwise we wouldn't be hearing about it. Because the Sacramento Kings, no offense to them, are one of those teams that seems to be an afterthought when it comes to history of the game, and also just in today's league, you don't necessarily look at them and think contender. While they are a California team, they just don't get the same respect that the Golden State Warriors, the Lakers, even the Clippers get. And they are a quality team by all standards, in my personal opinion, and I do enjoy watching them play basketball, but they just don't share that same limelight that a lot of other teams in their general vicinity do. As a result, this is one of those things that really comes across to me as being legitimate, because I don't see why so many people would be invested in it if it were to be a lie. To put this into context, yes, the Kings do have a fair bit of talent on their roster. They do have the ability to move a few draft picks around, but they don't have the reserves that, a lot of teams that actually plan on making moves this offseason do have at their disposal. They're not anywhere close to a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs, who have picks upon picks to make moves with. They do have the talent sufficiency, and it starts with the one and only De'Aaron Fox, because as I said before, he was hesitant to re-sign with the team because he really wanted to see what they were going to do this offseason and where this team was going to end up going. Last year, he played in 74 of their games, playing about 36 minutes, put together 26.6 points, 4.6 rebounds, 5.6 assists, had 2 steals, and shot 46.5% from the field and 36.9% from three-point range on almost 8 attempts per match. He was aided most importantly by what some people call as the Dollar Tree Jokic in Domantas Sabonis. He played all 82 games for them and played in roughly 36 minutes per match, putting together 19.4 points, 13.7 rebounds, 8.2 assists, which led the team, by the way, to go along with 0.9 steals, 0.6 blocks because he's not really known to be a rim protector. And then he also shot 59.4% from the field and a 37.9% from three-point range, but don't get that misconstrued as him being a three-point shooter because he only attempted 1.1 per game. Other double-digit scorers ended up being Malik Monk with 15.4, Keegan Murray with 15.2, Harrison Barnes with 12.2, and Kevin Huerter with 10.2 points. The most key contributors underneath that threshold ended up being Trey Lyles, Keon Lewis, Sasha Vezenkov, as well as Davion Mitchell. I think Lauri Markkanen could be switched out for some of those guys on that roster in particular, because while they do have some older guys like your Harrison Barnes of the world, and obviously Sabonis wouldn't be offered in that trade because he's part of that core that's in Sacramento alongside De'Aaron Fox, but maybe a Keegan Murray could be a player that gets switched out. Admittedly, Keegan Murray did become a better rebounder to assist Domantas Sabonis, but it's a pretty steep drop-off when it goes from his rebounding down to who's next on the list. Because Domantas Sabonis, as I said before, averages 13.7 rebounds. Keegan Murray went up from 4 rebounds the previous season up to 5.5. And beneath him, the next person is the one and only De'Aaron Fox, who averages 4.6. So they struggle a little bit from the rebounding department, put mildly. An interesting thing about this team is the fact that Domantas Sabonis is their leading assister by more than 2.5, basically, over De'Aaron Fox, who is a very playmaking heavy point guard. He does move off the ball well, but he does most of his damage with the ball in his hands. But they have a beautiful two-man game about them. And the idea that Lauri Markkanen could be paired alongside Domantas Sabonis, and considering the fact that most of his shots come assisted off of other players, having an elite passing hub as a big man to aid him would end up doing wonders, because obviously we knew that Lauri Markkanen played well offensively when he was on the court with Kelly Olynyk, because Kelly Olynyk could shoot, but he also was known to be a really good ball mover. While Domantas Sabonis isn't the most elite of shooters, he isn't afraid to take a shot if it's left available to him because he doesn't want to seem like a cone and just sit out there on an island. He also has the ability to command a certain level of respect and also gravity, considering the fact that most offensive actions are actually run through him at the top of the key. So you can't necessarily sag off of him and hide him in the corner because he doesn't hide in the corner. He's in the action every single time. Alongside the likes of De'Aaron Fox or Malik Monk, there's a lot of things that end up going right for them. Insert Lauri Markkanen into that and say they don't have to give up Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, or Domantas Sabonis. A lot of people aren't going to talk about how crazy that consistency could be between those players, but I really like what that could end up being. Defensively, obviously, Lauri has the ability to move around. He's pretty fleet of foot. He's not the greatest defender individually, but in the right system, I think that he could end up being a great positive, whereas he's just kind of middle of the road right now, or at least last season he was with the Utah Jazz. I think that his shooting touch could be greatly needed by this team in particular. And since De'Aaron Fox nor Domantas Sabonis are known for three-point balls being the heaviest part of their game, though obviously De'Aaron Fox hits 37% on basically 8 attempts, which is extremely respectable, I think that it makes more sense to add more three-point shooting that also has defensive versatility and isn't going to take away from the already ball-dominant players that you have that can be elite playmakers in their own right when it's necessary to do so. I think that it's a little bit OP to have Domantas Sabonis alongside Lauri Markkanen in your front court, and I love that because then you also help to solve the problem of rebounding, because Lauri is also, by the way, a good rebounder. The thing that he doesn't do well particularly, I guess, would be just putting the ball on the deck and getting to his own shot. He did try and work on it a little bit during the season, during that second half when the rookies were playing a lot more, but it didn't end up yielding perfect shooting percentages, and that's why his overall three-point percentage dropped from above 40% down to 39.9 on the season, but he still shot tremendous from the field overall. And I think that he would be maximized to his full potential alongside more than one elite playmaker. And the Utah Jazz didn't really have that. They had Chris Dunn, but then they ended up swapping him out for Keontae George. And while Colin Sexton took a step up, I wouldn't sit there and say already that he was at his peak when he was around Lauri Markkanen when times actually mattered. So if you put him on a team that has an above average passer and playmaker in De'Aaron Fox and a elite passer and playmaker in Domantas Sabonis, especially being a big and having a wider range of passes available to him to make and better court vision by default because less people can affect his passes. And I think you have a recipe for extreme success if you are the Sacramento Kings. Now, I can't really say exactly what the trade was going to look like for the Utah Jazz because those details weren't specifically released in the conversations that have been had and all the reports that I've been able to find so far. But I'd just assume that it had to have a significant amount of draft compensation. And because the Kings aren't necessarily at the peak of the mountain, I could see those picks being respectable. They're not going to be necessarily the bottom of the barrel lottery pick type picks, but they're also not guaranteed to be a 25th through 30th overall. They're going to be somewhere in the middle of the pack, which have value in their own right if you do decide to move up or move back or just play them where they lie. I think that depending on who the young player is that was involved in the trade possibly, it could be interesting. I personally would be a proponent for Keegan Murray, and to me, I think that just makes the most sense. I don't want Harrison Barnes. He's a little too old. While he did average 12.2 points, he had 3 rebounds and 1 assist, shooting 47.4% from the field and 38.7% from the three-point line on just 4.5 attempts. So it's respectable, but he's an aging player, and he's basically on his last legs now. And Keegan Murray is ascending into his stardom to a certain extent. He's not necessarily a great rebounder, but 15, 5, and 2 is pretty solid from my personal understanding. And I am quite fond of how he is switchable on defense. He's a pretty solid defender. He doesn't do too much, doesn't do too little. He's not super foul prone. And while he does have some more growing to do, I really like that as a centerpiece for them if they were willing to send it over. And Lauri is a comfortable bit better than him, particularly as a rebounder and as a scorer. And because of the type of scoring that he does, it works out really well with the system that they already have if you are the Sacramento Kings. So I could see you looking at Keegan Murray along with draft capital being an upgrade if you end up getting back Lauri Markkanen because he's just objectively better at the things that you need him to be better at. That said, it didn't happen, and maybe it does end up happening later on down the road, but that is yet to be seen. It's just interesting to see that this is one of those first official sightings that we're seeing so far of a team being just vehemently outed as being the front runners that have put in an offer, but also put in a strong offer on the Lauri Markkanen sweepstakes when it seemed like Danny Ainge was being very tight to the chest with his cards and wasn't really forcing anything to happen if he didn't need it to. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Do you think that Lauri Markkanen would look good in a Kings uniform? Do you think that they'll double back and make it more enticing to the point where Danny Ainge has to send him over there? Or do you think that they're just going to wait it out and that 10% chance is going to diminish to 0 as the offseason continues on and he just gets that new contract inked down? With that being said, go and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. It's your boy Wraith Hoops. As always, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.